Hello and good evening. Um, Welcome to Purim Maisius, Maisa Mechacham Betam. Here we are, 2 days before Purim. And the Maisa is very appropriate. Um, let's take a look at the text. Here we go. So we said, one time the king came upon the census and found written there these two sons. One with the name, the clever one, and the other with the name of the simple one. And the king desired to see them. The king thought, if I send for them suddenly to come before me, they will be frightened, will be very frightened. The clever one's reasoning will be completely confounded. And the simple one, too, might go crazy from fear. The king decided to send a clever person to the clever one, and a simpleton to the simple one. But where in the royal city can a simpleton be found? Since in the royal city most people are clever. However, the treasurer is specifically a simpleton. In other words, purposefully. Because a clever person is not desirable to oversee the treasury. Because through his cleverness and intellect, he might come to embezzle the wealth. Actually, the lashon of that Rabbeinu uses is not embezzle as much as waste it. In other words, make wrong decisions about it. Therefore, specifically, a simpleton is appointed to be the treasurer. And the king summoned a clever person to the aforementioned, clever person, and the aforementioned simpleton. In other words, summoned a clever person and the aforementioned simpleton. In other words, that's the Ministry of Treasury, and sent them to the two sons. And he gave each of them letters. He also gave them a letter to the governor of the province, whose authority these two sons were under. He ordered in the letter that the government should send letters to the clever one and the simple one in his own name, so they won't be frightened. And he should write to them that the matter is not urgent, nor has the king decreed specifically that they should come. Rather, the matter depends on what they want. If they want to, they should come. The king simply wants to see them. We're talking here, let's just read a little bit more. It says the two messengers, the clever person and the simpleton, traveled and came to the governor and gave them the letter. And the governor asked about these two sons, and he was told that the clever one is extraordinarily clever and very wealthy, and the simple one is exceedingly simple, his entire wardrobe consisting of a simple coat. The governor decided that it's certainly inappropriate to bring him before the king dressed in a simple coat. So he appropriated, he had appropriate clothing made for him, for the simple one, and placed it in the cover wagon for the simple one. He gave them letters, as mentioned before. The messengers traveled and arrived there, and gave him the letters. The clever person to the clever one, and the simple one to the simple one. As soon as the simple one got his letter, he said to the simple messenger who brought it, "Since I don't know how to read it to me." "Well, I'll tell you orally what is written in it," he replied. "The king wants you to come to him." So "You're not joking, right?" he asked quickly. He said, "Certainly true," he replied. "No joke." So he, the simpleton, was immediately filled with joy. He ran to his wife and says, "My wife, the king sent for me." "For what? Why?" she asked him. He didn't have a chance to answer her at all. He immediately became electrified with joy and right away went to travel with the messenger. He went inside and sat in the covered wagon, and he found there the clothing and became happier and happier. You know, we said we on Purim test that we learn in the Breslov Medrash on Thursday. We're in Purim tests, which is a Torah that deals with Chalal Apanui. That's the words of the Arizal, the very beginning of its Chaim. That's the very beginning of creation. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu has created within him a space in which HaKadosh Baruch Hu's omnipresence is hidden. And there all the worlds were created. Now, unlike, Sifri Kabbalah or whatever, Rabbeinu's meaning was not fuyadias. The meaning of Rabbeinu's kavanah was not that we should gain more knowledge about what Arizal said. Rabbeinu says in that particular Torah that the Ikar limit the Kabbalah is a Torah Atikas Timoya. That's the hidden Torah that is going to be revealed in the future. Rabbeinu calls la'asid lavai, that which will happen. Now, la'asid lavai is not as easily understood just something that will come in the future, in the time, but rather every madrega that is above the madrega that I'm holding now is an aspect of la'asid lavai, of that which is the time which is about to come, that which is intended to come. Now, that matter of Chal Apanui, of that vacant space, is a must, as we learned at great length, because it is impossible to actually grow in Avodas Hashem without a vacant space to grow into. If everything is a Kadosh Baruch Hu, everything is one, there's no tzimtzum, there's nothing that we can do with infinity. We cannot contain infinity. We cannot perceive infinity. It's unfathomable. It's there's no way to define it, to understand. It's undifferentiated. It's all one. So there has to be a situation in which all that is hidden from us And for us to understand what's the pshat is that the Chalapuni is something that Rabbeinu says you have to say contradictory things about him, about it, about Chalapuni. It is that the best mashal to explain the Metzias of Chalapani is when a Rav, a great Rav, teaches a student something. Now, the knowledge of the Rav is great, and it's way beyond the station of the simple person, as his student. So what does the Rav do? The Rav constricts his speech in a manner that conceals the immensity of his wisdom and only allows the student to get as much data, wisdom, knowledge as his brain can possibly process and understand. So the student is exposed to a version of the wisdom that is constricted. Comes the question, what happens to the great, mighty wisdom of the Rav? Does it stop existing? Does it disappear? The answer is of course not. It's just hidden. The Rav, very specifically and very deliberately, conceals and keeps the great wisdom, the vast expanses of his wisdom hidden, because if he were to reveal them, he would simply overwhelm the student. And it won't do the student any good. That is the marshal for the Or Ein Sof and the Chalapani. Everything is there, but it is hidden. We spoke Motzei Shabbos about the fact that Haman and Amalek, they exist on the water main, on the cusp, on the fault of between, the Kedusha and the Tumah. And what Amalek wants, what Haman wants, is for us to get overwhelmed, for us to get overexposed. In each and every one of us, we have it's a tov and it's a horror. This is what we say in Torah test. The Yetzer Tov are the good thoughts, and the Yetzer Hara are the bad thoughts. Now, the thoughts is the Chochmah Shebalev. All the thoughts and the midos and the maisim, everything comes from the Chochmah in the heart. Now, the Chochmah in the heart is governed about the person himself. He can decide what he wants to think. He wants to think good thoughts, or he wants to think bad thoughts. If he wants to think bad thoughts, the bad thoughts will lead to bad midos, and the bad midos will eventually lead to bad deeds. And the opposite, the good thoughts, will lead to good midos, And the good midos will lead to good deeds. Here we have a situation that the king, Melech HaMelachim, mentioned in Megillah many times, always hidden. Melech. Now the Dashnat HaMelech, the king's sleep, has left him. And whoever comes before the king. The entire Megillah is filled with euphemistic references to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Here in the story we find that the Melech is summoning the sons, the clever one and the simple one. And we said that the king was mispale. He wondered. He was filled with wonder. With what? By the fact that one is known as the clever one and one is known as a simple one. In other words, one is so clever that he's called a clever one. And one is so simple that it's called a simple one. There are many clever ones and many simple ones. But to be so quintessentially clever and quintessentially simple to the point that this is what people call them, this is very unusual. What is even more unusual is that they both reside in the same address. They both live in the house of the simple one, the Simpleton. This is a big marvel because Shleimus is, as we said before in Torah Aleph, Rabbeinu says that the Shleimus is when you seek the wisdom that is intrinsic in every single thing with the Malchus, with the Tmimus, with the Emunah. That is the thing that enables you to get the Chochmah in a way that is practical, that leads you to in a constructive manner. Because we find many references here that the Chochmah can very easily sway a person. Sophistication is a honey trap. Tmimus is the keli that can contain all the treasures. And this is what Rabbeinu alludes to, that the simpleton in the royal city, this treasure is the treasurer. It says, because the royal city is rife with clever people, with sophisticated people, because the olam is managed by Chochmah. But the treasures can only be held by Tmimus. The Chochmah, the way that is given, is not to be trusted with handling with treasures. Because a Chochmah is only limited, can only figure things out, can only solve problems according to its own madriga. In other words, when a person has some financial difficulties, and so over here there is what we call dinim, there's judgments there. His parnasa is affected. Well, because a person is applying his own chokhmah to his finances, and that chokhmah is limited, and he's making bad decisions. So what is the hamtaka and the amelioration of the judgments of that person's financial situation? The judgments, the consequences that result from the application of inadequate chokhmah to his situation. He will go to a financial advisor, somebody whose chokhmah is greater than the person in trouble. And his madrega of chokhmah suffices to see where the problems are, in the financial strata that person is struggling with. And he therefore can give him eitzes and chokhmah, how to fix his problems. And he tells him very simple things. He says, the first thing the first thing that he tells him is he tells him what, he tells him, let go of your chokhmas. Let go of your wisdom, meaning you obviously see that your chokhmas that you have been using is leading you to no good, because you think you know what you're doing, you end up getting mixed up. So the first thing that the advisor tells him is let go of your chokhmas. What does it mean? He says, there's something which is called in military history, military circles, there's something which is called estimate of the situation. This is a German concept, a Prussian concept actually, and you have to excuse me for the ringing. It's my mother-in-law is ringing for my wife. And first thing he tells him is, listen, go on, continue using your money the way that you've been using your money until now. Don't change anything. In order to estimate what's the estimate of the situation, it has to be based on facts. It cannot rest on assertions. It has to be, it cannot rest on mere assertions. It has to be based on facts. It says, listen, first thing, just keep on, from now on, for 30 days, keep on buying, spending, whatever it is, the way that you've been doing until now. Don't change anything. In other words, don't taint the evidence. The only thing that I'm asking you to do is take a receipt for everything that you buy. So the person goes and lives, buys, shops, whatever it is, pays bills, whatever he does, and he keeps the receipts. At the end of the month, he comes back to his advisor, and he take all the receipts, and they put it together. They put them to different piles. These are bills, this is food, this is entertainment, this is clothing, this is medical, this is that, whatever it is. And they pull it all up. They tally the whole thing. And then they put, okay, how much money do you have? How much income do you have? So the person bringing is that much income. Now let's take a look and see where the discrepancy is. If you are spending more than you're getting in, it's obvious that you're going to get into debt. It's simple. Because while you're using your own chachma when you're spending, you didn't figure out on the big picture. You're figuring, this is not much. Okay, this is just $10. This is just this. This is just that. This is just this, just that, and just it and just that. Amounts to a huge bill that that breaks you down to the ground. The chokhmah of that advisor is enough to make the birur in the dinim of the judgments of the person of the law madrega. However, when it comes to problems of a big company, that advisor cannot come up with the proper advice for them. They know and they run their own ledger just the way he does. In other words, their chokhmas as a big company lead them to much bigger squandering of funds than the small person ever could. The wisdom of the advisor is not enough to solve their problem. Rabbeinu is telling us that the thing that actually solves the problems, especially when it's to do with treasury, is tmimus. Pashut. You don't waste money. You find out what something is necessary. You find out if you have the money. You find out whether this is needed or that is needed. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. And this is what you do. Pashut. That's tmimus. Haman Amalek wants to tell you that chachma, sophistication, is the answer to everything. Since we see that it is this advisor that is using his own chachma to solve the chachma of the person on the lower madrega, so here you have proof positive that sophistication, that seichel is the thing that solves the problems. But it's not so. A seichel solves the problems only when it is contained with tmimus. The seichel of the advisor can be used constructively only by someone who accepts the directions with tmimus. He goes ahead, he buys, he gets the receipts, he sits down, makes a decision. How does he spend? What does he spend? What is he going to cut? What is cut out? How he's going to buy? Whatever it is that they decide. Without the tmimus, the chokhmah has absolutely no value. And the same thing in the madrega of the advisor. If the advisor uses chokhmah to try to solve his own problems, he will get into trouble. He needs chokhmah, somebody who is above him. And he has to accept the chokhmah from that advisor, the tmimus. Haman, Amalek, wants us to go way beyond our station with chokhmah. Our natural inclination is to go up, to go to Or Ein Sof. That excitement of the heart leads us to, on that particular day, the day of Purim, is the one day that an unbelievable miracle has occurred. Usually we are protected from overexposure to infinity through the basic measures of the light of the Keser, which acts as a barrier. We are striving to attain the light of the supernal Chachma, to the light of Kadosh Baruch Hu. And as we approach, we are banging into a barrier of our limited ability to understand what we're learning, or the limited physical stamina that we have, all the limits of our attention span, or whatever it is. And what we do is we knock on the door. We knock on the Keser. And by pecking on the Keser, what we're doing is we are actually creating what Rabbeinu called Heichalos. And in those Heichalos, this is where we get, Rabbeinu says, Torah Chav Gimel, this is where Or Ein Sof comes in a sheltered way. Yes, it's the light which is beyond us, but nevertheless it's within the confines of the Keser. We can get a taste of that is beyond us, and we can get it. Rabbeinu says you can get it and not get it. This is the usual exposure, the maximum exposure that one could get of the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But during the Purim, during that episode that took place when Haman, cast, the cast a lottery, the girl. Haman was Amalek is going beyond the Seichel. One is going beyond that which is acceptable, beyond that which is acceptable in the sense that you don't have the faculties to contain it. So when we have to make decisions on something which is beyond our capacity to fathom, we either go to something which is beyond the Seichel, or we go to something which is beneath the Seichel. Seichel does not provide answers. So either we go beyond the Seichel, you cast a lot, and you see what the girl says. In a sense, girl is the epitome of trusts in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Below the Seichel come the superstitions. These are silly emunas. It's also, they're both emunah. One of them is it's just silly emunas, that if you open up an umbrella in the house, it's bad luck. I don't know, if a black cat crosses your way, it's bad luck. And if you pass underneath a ladder that, I don't know, it stunts your growth. I don't know whatever the shtisim is. I mean, this is a munah which has been beneath the seichel. Hamalek wants to pull us beyond the seichel, but he wants us to actually get and to try to use the chochmah of Sha'ar Chamishin. What's going to happen to us when we get there is that we will simply fall apart. This is what happened in that particular generation. As we said, we were out of our element. We were no longer in Galus, and we were not yet in the Geula. We were in Chalapanai. We didn't have in our, tool case, the tools to make sense of our situation. It's like when you take a person and you give him, he wins the lottery. What is he going to do? I mean, he doesn't have the means to control that, to contain that. He can't control anything. He does not have the natural protection of his ability to say no to people who crave his money that rich people usually do, usually have. On the other hand, he doesn't have the kalim to be a rich man either. How much to spend, how much not to spend. He doesn't know. This was the situation. So what happens, Am Yisrael in that particular time married Goitas and went to eat in the Suda of Achashverosh. They were an easy prey because nothing in their experience have prepared them to this in-between zone, this chala panai. All the answers don't apply anymore. They don't excite me anymore. They don't give me the answers. The new chachma of that which is to come, said, I don't have it yet. Says Amalek, come with me. I'll show you. The answer is in chachma. You got to figure out, I'm going to teach you a way that will show you how to do that, how to handle it. The answer is, honest people and tmimis dika people are usually the last ones that fall prey to con men. I mean, people that have real emunah, that really understand, yeshiva das. Because what con men prey upon is upon our desire to get something for nothing. So, since we want to get something for nothing, get rich quick, whatever it is, basically get something for nothing, they use this taiva against us, and as a result, what they do, the Haman, the Amalek, is that they give us nothing for something. You take what we have and give us nothing back. That is Amalek. You see here that the king said, I'm going to send a simple man to the simpleton. And there's no flower, he doesn't read him the whole letter and the whole thing and this and that. He just tells him, I'll tell you verbally, what's the story? The story is the king wants to see you. The Tam does not ask any questions. Immediately, I go. That's it, I'm going. He tells his wife is the Emunah, says, why? Why is the king calling you? I don't know, there's no time. He calls me, I have to go. Kodesh Baruch Hu asks me, I have to go. Then he goes into the wagon. And he says, a covered wagon. This is a safe place. This is already a faculty. Over there, he finds the new clothing. Now new clothes, new levushin. Levushim have new faculties for new asagas. Well, this particular day of Purim, the only thing that we can actually use that will work for us is we have to combine the tmimis with the ultimate chokhmah. In other words, we have no choice. We have to delve into Shara Chamishim. This is what Haman did. We have to get inside the Shara Chamishim. This is a very, very dangerous place. This is where Chokhmah can, as we B'ezrat Hashem learn later on, that's the thing that the Chacham, the clever one, stumbles upon. But the Tam deals with the whole thing with Tmimus, which means we are called upon to visit the Shara Chamishim. We are to battle the Shara Chamishim of Tuma. The only way that we can battle it is by entering the Shara Chamishim de Kedusha, but we don't have Shara Chamishim de Kedusha now. We don't have that faculties. It's way beyond our pay grade. So Lemaisa, what do? We do all the things which are the opposite typifiers of Shara Chamishim de Tuma. Shara Chamishim de Tuma is greed, is Taivas Momen, as we learn in Terech of Gimel. So what do? We do Matonos Le'Evyonim. We do Mishloach Manos. We're giving. Anybody that asks, you give them. That's the opposite of Haman. Haman is rich. Haman is gathering money. He's gathering for me. It's mine. It's mine. Me. For me. Li. To me. We're doing the opposite. That's Lamaisa. Tmimis, Pashut, Midos, Tevis, the Hapech of Haman. With the mind, with the Das, how are we ever going to survive an exposure to Shara Chamishim? The way we do it is we listen to Kriyas Megillah. We listen to the light, because in the Megillah, the light of the Megillah is the light of Mordechai and Esther. Mordechai is the light of Shara Chamishim de Kedusha. Esther is the Malchus, is the Tmimis. We do Betmimis in what we do. How do we listen to the Megillah, we accept the light of Mordechai and Esther, the extreme sanctity and Kedusha of Mordechai and Esther, because Mordechai is the Megillah, the way that Moshe Rabbeinu is Torah. And then what we do is we drink and we elevate the das to the point that we don't have das at all. We are exposing ourselves to that sophistication of the Shara Chamishim that Haman wants us to actually, delve into it and find out what the answers are by elevating our das to the point that we have no das anymore at all. It's beyond the seichel. It's the level of girl. We put our own das into here. You want Shara Chamishim? Vakasha, here we go. Ad lo yoda. A thing you don't know between Baruch Mordechai or Haman and Baruch Mordechai, we don't know, this is that. Everything becomes one. Everything becomes one. And when we come back from Ein Sof, we're coming back with a reshimu. We're coming back with a residue, with an imprint of mati velamati, of a kedusha that is way, way, way beyond our station. And that enables us, B'ezrat Hashem, to start and go towards Pesach, Yetzias Mitzrayim. So the Tam is being called by a Tam. And if he were to use any Chachma, he would ask a question, why? That's the tefillah that the moon asking you. Why is the king calling you? What is he calling you for? No time, because to wait means to get into the danger of being exposed to Ein Sof, to Shara Chamishim, which is beyond. The king calls, I'm running. What are you running? You're running into the wagon, a covered wagon. in the cover when you already found levushim for the next step. Kadosh Baruch Hu B'ezrat Hashem Zaka us, all of us, to Kedushas Mordechai ve'Esther. At Hashem, we will be zoche to, to the light of the Tzaddik HaEmes, to be exposed sensibly and with mimes to the light which is beyond our mind. And with this bring bracha and atzlacha and safety and health to each and every one of us and to all our families and to Klal Yisrael B'ezrat Hashem. At Hashem, we'll see, B'vias Mashiach Tzidkenu B'ezrat Hashem sooner nowadays. Amen. At Hashem, Wednesday night is, is Purim. I don't know, what we're going to do. I will believe me to send you mail, to that effect to say we're probably going to go to sleep early, so we'll be able to use Purim night appropriately.